I was 15 when it happened, old enough to want space from my parents, but still young enough to believe I'd be protected, no matter how far into the woods we went. It was the last week of July, the kind of thick, buzzing summer that turns forests into saunas and makes every breath feel like it's filtered through moss. My best friend Jordan had invited me to go camping with his family, up near a place called Black Hollow, a rarely used section of state-protected woods, somewhere along the Pennsylvania border. No cell reception, no internet, just trees, dirt, and enough open sky to make you forget school existed. His parents were always more lenient than mine. They brought too much beer, and not enough rules. That made their trips feel like the kind of freedom every teenager wanted, but didn't quite understand. Jordan's uncle, a wiry ex-military type with deep-set eyes and a voice that always sounded like gravel. He was in charge of the plan. He said the campground was technically unofficial, a forgotten trailhead, a lake with no dock, a handful of old scout sites that hadn't been maintained since the 90s. According to him, it was real camping. And that's all that mattered. The first day was fine. Typical, even. We pitched our tents just before the rain threatened to ruin everything, and spent the afternoon skipping stones across the lake that smelled like wet pennies. The sun set faster than we expected, turning the trees into black silhouettes that loomed over our fire like quiet sentinels. That night, we roasted marshmallows on scavenged sticks, made fun of each other's ghost stories. Jordan tried to freak me out with some tale about a boy who vanished into the fog, but we both knew it was made up. That was the game. Scare, laugh, sleep, repeat. But something changed the next night, and I haven't been the same since. It started around 9:30. Most of the adults were either buzzed or asleep. Jordan and I were still wound up from the fire and decided to do what we always did, take our flashlights and wander off the trail, just to push the edge, just to feel that nervous rush that comes from thinking you're braver than you really are. We followed an overgrown path behind the clearing. I remember the way the leaves crunched beneath our sneakers, and how even the crickets seemed to get quieter the deeper we went. After 10 minutes, Jordan stopped walking. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I did. At first I thought it was just wind, but then I realized it wasn't moving. It wasn't rustling anything. It was still. And it was talking. Not loudly, not clearly, just a whisper, like someone repeating something, over and over, under their breath. We turned our lights toward the sound. It came from the left, behind a cluster of saplings and broken branches. Neither of us said a word. As we moved closer, inch by inch, like we were being pulled instead of choosing to walk. And then, we saw her. She was crouched on the ground, not kneeling, crouched, like an animal. Knees to her chest, arms hugging her legs. Her hair hung in front of her face, soaked and matted, like she'd been caught in a storm that hadn't happened. Her clothes were dark and shapeless, and her skin, the little of it that caught the light, was pale in a way that didn't feel real, like paper left in a drawer for too long. She was whispering to herself. We couldn't make out the words, but they weren't right. They were clipped, strained, as if her mouth didn't know how to shape them. I should have turned around. I should have grabbed Jordan and run. But I didn't. I said, "Hey, are you okay?" That's when she stopped. The whispering, the rocking, the stillness, all of it, gone in a breath. She slowly lifted her face toward us, and I swear to you, her eyes were open so wide, they barely looked human. Just white, shining circles, reflecting our flashlights. Her mouth opened slightly, not in surprise, not in fear, just wide enough to let something out, but nothing came. Jordan grabbed my arm. "We need to go." We didn't run. We walked, fast, eyes on the trail, hands gripping our lights like they'd keep us safe behind us. I swear I heard her say something, a single sentence, clear as day, You don't belong here." We didn't speak until we reached camp. That night, I stayed zipped up in my sleeping bag, eyes on the tent ceiling. Every gust of wind sounded like breath. Every snapped twig made my stomach drop. At one point, I thought I heard someone walking between our tents, but when I looked, there was nothing. The next morning, the adults didn't believe us. Of course they didn't. Jordan's mom laughed. "Campfire stories, huh?" His uncle just grunted and told us to man up. We decided not to go back into the woods. Not that day, but that night, I don't know why, we heard her again. It started just after midnight. Jordan shook me awake. He was sitting up in his tent, pale, sweating. He whispered, "She's back." I listened. Silence. Then rustling. Then whispering. The same cadence, the same tone. Louder now, closer. Jordan reached for the zipper. I told him not to open it, but he did, and we both froze. Standing at the edge of the clearing, barely 5 feet from our tents, was the girl. Not crouched, not hiding, just standing. She was barefoot. Her legs were dirty, streaked with mud and something darker. Her hair dripped onto her shoulders, even though there'd been no rain. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Jordan tried to yell, but no words came. He zipped the tent shut so fast it caught on the fabric. We held our breath and waited, and then we heard her walk away, but she didn't walk like a person. There were no footsteps, just silence. And then, gone. At sunrise, we told my parents. I don't know if it was the fear in my voice or the look in my eyes, but for once, they didn't argue. We packed early. Everyone was confused, but no one pressed too hard. By noon, we were back on the highway. Just as we passed the small ranger station near the entrance to Black Hollow, I looked out the window. There she was, standing behind the trees, watching. Same dress, same eyes. I didn't tell anyone. I just turned away and kept my mouth shut the rest of the ride. I never went back. Jordan won't talk about it anymore. But sometimes, even now, when I'm falling asleep, I hear the whisper again. You don't belong here. And every time I close my eyes, I wonder if maybe she didn't mean the woods. Maybe she meant the world. Before we get into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next scary story arrives. We need your support. If this story chills you, share it with your friends, with your family, with anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being here. I never thought I'd say this, but I don't think I'll ever be alone in the woods again. Not after what happened in June. Not after the knocking. It started with something simple. Burnout. I'd been working remotely for nearly 9 months without a single break. Meetings blurred into one another. My apartment felt smaller with each passing week. Even my own reflection in the bathroom mirror started to look like someone else. So I booked a cabin. One of those off-grid getaways you see in Instagram ads. Solar power, no Wi-Fi, and a hand pump for water. They called it Cabin 5, tucked into a forest preserve in northern Maine. Nearest town was a 30-minute drive. The owner told me it was an old fire lookout post, converted into a rental for writers or people who just needed to think. That sounded like heaven to me. I arrived on a Friday afternoon just before the sky started turning slate gray. The air smelled like pine and wet soil. Everything felt clean in a way the city never did. I parked on the gravel shoulder, unlocked the gate, and hiked the last quarter mile to the cabin. It was smaller than the photos made it seem. One room, bare wooden walls, a cot, and a small propane stove that let out a high-pitched hiss when I lit it. There was a desk by the window, no curtains, just glass, facing miles of thick, uninterrupted forest. For the first 24 hours, it was peaceful. Too peaceful. I drank coffee, read, tried to write something meaningful, but mostly just listened to the wind moving through the trees. And then the first night came. It happened around 1 a.m. I'd just finished brushing my teeth using bottled water when I heard it. One knock, clear, slow, deliberate, on the cabin's front door. I froze. No one was supposed to be out here. No car had passed the trailhead. No voice had called out, just a knock. I didn't move at first, just stood there listening. My breath felt loud in the silence. I whispered, "Hello?" Nothing. Another knock came, softer this time, but from the side of the cabin. I stepped backward, my spine pressing into the wall behind me. There were no lights outside, only the small solar lamp above the door, casting a dull orange glow into the clearing. I didn't dare open the door. I didn't sleep either. I sat up, gripping the flashlight, watching that front door like it might move. The morning felt surreal. Birdsong, sunlight, no footprints in the soft dirt outside. I convinced myself it was a branch, maybe a pine cone, maybe a raccoon or the wind. Maybe I just needed sleep. But that second night, it came again. Same time. 3 knocks. This time quicker. But it wasn't on the door. It was on the window, the one next to the desk. I turned slowly, and for the briefest moment I saw something. Not a face, not a body, just movement, like a shadow retreating from the glass. I ran to the door, locked the bolt, and pulled the chair in front of it. There was no phone signal, no one to call, no way to leave until daylight. I told myself I was safe, but I didn't believe it. The knocks didn't return that night, but they didn't need to. By day 3, I stopped writing. I stopped eating much. I stopped sitting near the windows. Something was outside, and it wasn't trying to get in. It was waiting. That night, I stayed up with my flashlight again. 1 a.m. passed. Nothing. No knock. No shadow. Just silence. And then, at 2:17 a.m. exactly, came the sound of something dragging, slow, through the leaves, past the far wall. Then the tap of fingernails, soft, rhythmic, scraping along the wooden slats outside. I pressed my ear to the wall, held my breath, and heard a whisper. "You saw me." I backed away from the wall so fast I nearly fell over the cot. I didn't sleep, didn't blink, didn't move. When daylight came, I packed, shoved everything into my bag, and didn't even bother making the bed. The trail back to the car felt longer than I remembered, but I made it. I drove straight to a motel in town and didn't tell the clerk a word. I stayed awake that night, convinced I'd see someone in the parking lot or hear knocking on the room door. But there was nothing. And the weirdest part? I never told anyone. Not my parents, not my co-workers, not even my therapist. I came back home, put the backpack in storage, deleted the rental listing from my email. But every so often, when I pass a mirror or walk past a darkened window, I feel it. Not fear, not exactly, just expectation. Like something's waiting for me to notice it again. Because here's the part that still haunts me. When I left that cabin, no one came after me. But the night I got back to my apartment at exactly 2:17 a.m., I heard a single knock on my bedroom wall, the one that faces the alley. We were 4 days into the hike when we realized we were being followed. It was supposed to be a detox trip. Me, my cousin Ryan, and my older brother Sam. 3 guys, no phones, no cities. Just us and the boundary wilderness up in Minnesota. We wanted to disconnect, to cook our own food, sleep under the stars, and feel human again. But by the end of that trip, I was begging for walls, for traffic, for anything that made noise loud enough to drown out the silence we brought home with us. It started simple. Ryan thought he saw someone at the waterline. We were camped along a rocky ridge that overlooked one of the smaller lakes. A steep climb down. No marked trails. No way up unless you knew the exact path. He said it was probably a kayaker. A flash of orange. Something bright against the tree line. But when we scanned the shoreline with binoculars, there was nothing. Just still water. Driftwood. And a slab of smooth gray rock jutting out like a stage with no one to perform on. We made jokes about it, gave it a name, the Watchtower. Said if we got murdered out here, that's where the killer would stand. We laughed, but we kept checking it, over and over, even when we didn't say we were doing it. On the second night, I woke up to the sound of splashing. Not a fish jump, something larger, rhythmic, like footsteps through shallow water. I sat up, unzipped the tent. The lake was maybe 70 feet away. The moon was low and bright enough to cast shadows. And on the rock, the watchtower, stood a man. Not moving, not turning, just standing, facing the woods, not the water, like he was looking back at us. I stared at him for what felt like 10 minutes. He didn't flinch, didn't sway, didn't even breathe as far as I could tell. And when I blinked, he was gone. No splash, no exit, just gone. I didn't tell Sam or Ryan the next morning. I wanted to believe I imagined it, that it was a dream, that I was just overtired and too eager to turn the wild into a story. But by night 3, I couldn't keep it to myself, because Sam saw him too. He shook me awake, his face pale, breathing fast. "Someone's down there," he whispered. I crawled out of the tent, heart pounding, and there he was, same man, same position, facing us this time, head tilted slightly, like he was listening. This time Ryan saw him too. He raised his flashlight, clicked it on, and the beam hit nothing. Just empty rock. 3 seconds. Gone again. We packed everything that night. We didn't even argue about it. Didn't talk logistics, didn't pull out the maps, we just wanted to move anywhere else. But the trail back was brutal. Half uphill, narrow bends, loose stone. You don't exactly run through the boundary waters. That final night, we didn't set up camp properly. We just collapsed near a shallow creek and agreed to rotate watch. I took the second shift, 2 to 4 a.m. I didn't last the full time, because at 3:12 I heard something behind me. Not animal. Footsteps, on dry leaves, slow and intentional. I turned, shined the light, and just 20 feet back, in the trees, the man stood there, same clothes, face shadowed, but his arms were moving, not waving, not reaching, just swaying side to side like a metronome without a rhythm. I backed away, didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared. Because if I looked away, I was sure he'd be closer. Ryan and Sam woke to me shaking them, white-knuckled, breathless. We packed again. Before dawn, no food, no water refill, just forward motion. We reached the trailhead by early afternoon. Blisters, empty canteens, sore shoulders. But we made it. I looked back once. Only once. And on the other side of the lake, barely visible on the farthest reach of the ridge, I swear I saw him again. Tiny. Still. Back on that rock. We never reported it. Who would we tell? A silent man in the woods who moves when you blink? Who doesn't leave prints? Who stands in water without ripples? Sam won't talk about it anymore. Ryan refuses to camp again. As for me, I still hike, but I don't stay overnight. And I never, ever look too long at the water, because I'm not sure he stayed in Minnesota. I think he followed us home, or worse. I think we brought something back. We weren't even supposed to camp that night. That's what still gets me. If we'd just kept driving, if the gas station hadn't been closed, if we hadn't missed that exit, maybe none of it would have happened. But it did, and I haven't trusted maps since. It was just me and my friend Alex. We'd been on a 2-week road trip through the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. We'd loaded his SUV with gear, snacks, audiobooks, and a worn-out atlas that barely held together at the spine. We were supposed to stay in a motel just outside of Winslow, but we missed our turn, and by the time we realized, we were already deep into BLM land, desert scrub, no service, just red dust and stars. That part was beautiful, actually. There was something about the way the night sky swallowed you out there. No light pollution, no sound. So when we saw a faded wooden sign that read, Stargazer loop, 3 miles. We figured, why not? We'd camped rough before. We took the turn. And that was the last normal thing we did. The road was dirt but passable. It looped up through low hills around clusters of dead juniper and blackened cacti. We followed the signs. Loop A, then Loop B. At the top of a short incline, we found a clearing. A single fire ring. No other cars. It was perfect. We parked, set up the tent in 20 minutes, started a fire with what little dry wood we could find. It was quiet, still, no wind, no bugs, just open sky and silence. I remember thinking how weird that was. No crickets, no owls, just nothing. Around 11:30, Alex pointed up. There were 3 stars that didn't look like the others, too close together, almost forming a perfect triangle. We watched them for maybe 10 minutes. They didn't move. Then, just as I was about to joke that they were government drones or something, they blinked out. All at once. Gone. We looked at each other, waited for them to come back. They didn't. That's when we heard it. A sound like sand shifting under something heavy. From the hill above us. Just a single movement. Then silence. I shined the flashlight toward the ridge. Nothing. Just rocks and dry brush. But the air felt wrong. Like someone had exhaled right next to my ear. We tried to brush it off, poured water on the fire, got into the tent. But around 2 a.m., we heard footsteps. One, then another, crunching into the gravel, circling the tent. I whispered, "Is that a coyote?" Alex didn't answer, because the steps stopped, right next to him. He unzipped the tent in one motion and pointed the flashlight. But there was no one. No animal. No marks. Just disturbed dirt. As if something had been standing there, but cast no shadow. We didn't sleep. At first light, we packed everything in 15 minutes. But when we got in the car and started heading back down the hill, the road didn't look the same. There was no fork, no wooden sign, no markers. We just kept driving. Downhill, then uphill again, then downhill. We passed a pile of white stones, then again, and again. I remember Alex whispering, "We're going in circles." By the 3rd loop, we stopped pretending it was a coincidence. I marked a tree with a shoelace. We drove past it 20 minutes later, 4 times. We tried turning off the engine, waiting, getting out, walking. The desert stayed the same. Still, hot, wrong, like it had frozen around us and left us to wander through copies of the same terrain over and over again. When the sun started going down again, I panicked. We were down to a quarter tank, no service, no signal. No way this should have been happening. Then Alex slammed on the brakes. There was a figure standing in the road, just a silhouette. At the bend where we'd seen that rock pile before. We stared at it, frozen. It didn't move, didn't gesture, just stood there, facing us. Then, without walking, it blinked, not its eyes. The whole thing, gone, then back, half an inch closer. Alex floored it. We drove through where it had been, no impact, no shadow, just heat. And as we crested the next hill, we saw the sign again. Stargazer loop, 3 miles, the same one, faded wood, same tilt, same bullet hole in the bottom corner, except it was facing the wrong way, like we'd come from behind it, like we were approaching it again. I don't remember how we got out. I wish I could tell you there was some moment, some break in the loop, some crack in the code, but I can't. We just kept driving until somehow we were out, back on pavement. Back near the highway. No idea how. No gas left. We never found the sign again. Not on satellite view, not in backcountry maps, not even in forums for local campers. But I still think about those footsteps, that figure, and the stars. The triangle in the sky that blinked out as if someone had flipped a switch. And here's the part I don't say out loud. Sometimes I wonder if we didn't make it out. Not really. Because every now and then, when I drive past a gravel turnoff at night, I swear I see it again. The sign, the curve, the loop, waiting. Before we get into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next scary story arrives. We need your support. If this story chills you, share it with your friends, with your family, with anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being here. I woke up with dirt in my mouth and no idea how I got there. My cheek was pressed into the ground, pine needles clinging to my skin. My lips were cracked, my throat burned. It was morning, and the fire was still warm. That was the first sign something wasn't right. The last thing I remembered was sitting beside the flames with my brother Mark. We'd hiked in the day before, a short trail in the Pacific Northwest, nothing dangerous, well-maintained, mapped. Mark had found the campsite online. It was one of those hidden gems you see on forums, unofficial but still used by locals. No cell service, no signal, just trees and water and time. We'd been trying to reconnect, talk through some old stuff. We hadn't spoken much since Mom died. But that night around the fire, we actually laughed, shared old stories, made peace. I remember falling asleep in my sleeping bag, feeling calm, and then nothing. Just that. Blank. Until I woke up, face in the dirt, cold ash on my hands. At first I thought I'd rolled out of my tent, but there was no tent, no gear, no cooler, no Mark. Just the burned circle of stone where the fire had been, and the faint smell of smoke still clinging to the morning air. I called out his name. No answer. I checked the spot where we'd pitched the tent. Flat earth, no footprints, no disturbance. It was like we'd never set anything up. I looked at my watch. It was dead. Hands frozen at 2:43. I checked my pockets. No phone, no keys, no knife. Just a granola bar wrapper and a single match. I started walking. The trail wasn't where I remembered it. The trees looked the same, but the turns were wrong. Too tight, too dark. It felt like the woods had shifted just enough to keep me in them. After an hour, I found something. A shirt. Mark's shirt. Still buttoned. Laid flat on a tree stump like it had been placed there deliberately. There was no dirt, no dew, just waiting. I called his name again. Louder this time. Still nothing. I don't know how long I wandered. Could have been 4 hours. Could have been 2 days. Eventually, I saw smoke through the trees. A small, rising column, thin and pale. I ran toward it, stumbling, breathless. And then I stopped, because it was our fire pit. Still there, still warm. Again, same stones, same ash. Except now my backpack was sitting beside it, unzipped, half full. And Mark's boots were sitting just outside the ring, toes pointed inward, as if he'd just stepped out of them. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't rebuild the fire, didn't touch the pack, didn't call his name again. The moon came and went. I watched the shadows stretch, then shrink, then stretch again. And at some point, I must have passed out, because I woke up on the ground. Again, face in the dirt, same pine needles, same ash, same fire pit, still warm. No boots, no backpack, no shirt, nothing. Just me. That was 6 months ago. I found my way out, somehow. Stumbled onto a ranger patrol trail and collapsed in front of them. They asked if I'd been injured. Said my face looked sunburned and wind-chapped. Said I was lucky. I told them I'd been with my brother. They didn't find any record of a Mark crossing the trailhead. No vehicle registered to his name. No gear, no tent, nothing. I asked if someone could have erased the log manually. They said the sign-in sheet was electronic. My name was the only one listed. I've checked every missing persons database I can find. There's no Mark Richards listed anywhere. No old address, no photo. Like he was never born. But I know he was real. I remember the stories. I remember his laugh. I remember what he said to me the night before the fire went out. I feel like the woods are listening. Sometimes I wonder, did I dream him? Did I create him to keep from going insane? But then, Every time I close my eyes, I hear something. Not a voice, not breathing. Just the soft, rhythmic sound of a match being struck, over and over. And every time I wake up, the fire is still warm. If you're here for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next scary story arrives. We need your support. If this story chills you, share it with your friends, with your family, with anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being here.